Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I had other videos that I had scheduled to film today, but unfortunately I've had to do this one by way of necessity, and it's quite unfortunate, but we're going to get into that. So I wanted to talk about my last video that I posted here, and you're going to notice that it's not here any longer. We'll get into that. The last video that I posted had to do with how vastly different the goth subculture is portrayed, perceived, the information is exchanged, and overall temperament on the different platforms as a whole. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. And something that happened by way of me joining TikTok is it really showed me the progress that we made on YouTube, because there are so many content creators now that represent such a deep level of authenticity here, which wasn't here when I first started my channel, because it was kind of buried by way of hauls, unboxings, and nothing really related to the subculture, but it was a lot more misinformation than anything else. That being said, it doesn't really exist to that level anymore, and it's to the point where YouTube is probably the most accurate representation on a social media platform for goth. So in my last video, I wanted to discuss the varying differences between my content here versus my content on TikTok. And the reason that it's so wildly different is because of the temperament and the misinformation here versus there. And as I said, on this platform, as it exists, it's probably one of the most accurate representations of the subculture that you will find. All the content creators here have been working so hard and really doing their due diligence to share the culture, share the social aspects, share the music, and just keep people in the know. And an extension of that are the communities that developed around it that are in the comments, even putting in that overtime by way of explaining things to baby bats or to really give more information and provide a sense of community and support for others, and I think that's amazing. However, when it came to TikTok, it was like an entirely different animal, and it's something that I'm still adjusting to with interactions that I had that left an impression on me that made me want to say something and to speak up. And the reason that I wanted to say something and speak up is because I don't tolerate bullying. I don't like bullying. I don't tolerate bullying. It is something that I 100% cannot abide. If I were to summarize TikTok in one word, I would have to say jump scare, because you think you know what's coming, but you don't know what's coming. You have no idea. It comes out of left field and it will give you whiplash. And that is pretty much what I experienced on that site. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because in my previous video, what I wanted to kind of demonstrate is kind of the cultural differences and the differences in misinformation. And I wanted to point out that just because there definitely are some TikTokers that are not doing their due diligence and not there for the most positive means, there are people there that are really doing the work. And I wanted to at least give credit where credit was due, because they're amazing. And another two that I demonstrated in the very beginning of that video were by way of interactions that I had, and they weren't positive interactions. And I'm used to interacting in a much different way, because I think temperament-wise on YouTube, I think we are used to a more long-form content, and I think that just creates like an entirely different kind of audience. I could be wrong. You can correct me if I'm wrong. My previous video was taken down by way of a copyright violation, and the copyright violation was made because somebody had filed a takedown request. And prior to that takedown request being made, I had received a series of DMs, which I want to share with you. And I want to remind you that the original reason for the discourse was our disagreement over goth being a music-based subculture. Before I share the DMs, this is a recap of my interaction with this person on their TikTok. This exchange is the reason why I really wanted it included in my previous video, because it had just fit what I was trying to convey so well. It starts to look a little bit disjointed at the end because they were deleting comments so quickly. Unfortunately, I had to defer to my activity page to get any screenshots needed. But unfortunately, on your activity page, it only shows incoming activity, not outgoing. So only their comments to me were visible. This is just the abridged version. The DM itself was way too long to post. and immediately made 19 TikToks claiming that I am TERF, months after my transgender cousin unalived herself. So the video of theirs that I had actually commented on was a video that they had made talking about music-based subcultures, and that goth is not one of them, and that goth is a subculture that can survive without the music. So long as you partake in the lifestyle, so long as you dress the part, you have specific ideologies, that you don't need the music, that you can be a goth nonetheless, and that anybody that tries to tell you that goth is a music-based subculture is just an old head and an elitist. Mind you, that's not verbatim. That's me just kind of abridging what was said. Basically that only elitists and gatekeepers are the ones that will push the whole kind of goth as a music-based subculture thing. So as a result, this caused me to look a little bit deeper into this person and what I had found, not just by way of the content, but in the comments as well, is there was a lot of talk about elders bullying baby bats, like this was a really big issue. And that's something that's very strange to me. And the reason it's strange to me is this, that baby bats are the lifeblood of the community. And anybody, any true goth, any goth worth their salt, we love this subculture and we love baby bats because you are the ones that are going to keep the subculture going. You are the ones that are going to like carry the torch and keep the thing. And without baby bats, the subculture is going to die. You know, so that means no more new bands. That means no concerts, no venues, no nothing, no none of these things. We lose all of it. And bullying baby bats is counterintuitive to that whole message. Because if anything, what we want to do is we help them. You know, we give you information. We tell you where to, like, how to DIY, where to shop, where to get your music, like what are the new bands that are out, concerts that are coming up, things that you can attend, and just overall just tips in life. You know, like what got us through when we were your age. We like sharing those things, especially we like sharing things the way that they went down when we were younger because they meant so much to us. We want you to have those experiences. So when I saw all of this being said in the comments, it made me really want to look into it because I want to know who's doing it. I want to know the exact people who are bullying baby bats because I'd like to have some freaking words, and I'm sure a lot of other people would. I couldn't find it. However, I need to point out that just because I couldn't find it, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that I can't find it. If you have information and you can find it, please find me on TikTok, tag me. Tag me in the comments. If you see any of this going on, please tag me in the comments because I want to see who's bullying baby bats. Baby bats are the lifeblood of our community, and if you bully them, we don't have a subculture anymore. No baby bats, no goth. So doing that kind of deep dive, really trying to find this, but also listening to all the other people saying this, it reminded me of when I had first gotten to YouTube. And a lot of you will remember this. Do you remember that there were a lot of content creators that would get really offended whenever you'd mention music, and they would immediately start yelling elitist and gatekeeper, or they would outright say in their videos that anybody that brings up music to you is an elitist or a gatekeeper? And I found that really strange as a goth. When we see content creators misinforming people and we make the decision to kind of come in with a correction, we don't do so by way of hierarchy. We don't do it to pull rank. We don't do it for some form of elitism or anything like that. We're looking at your comment section. We're looking at all the baby bats. We're looking at all the baby bats to come that are looking to you for guidance and information because they search this thing out because they're interested in it. They want to find their way. And when they hit you and you've misinformed them, what that does is it forms a sort of roadblock and it misdirects them. But at my age, it was a lot different because there wasn't any of this misinformation floating around, not when it came to any of the alternative subcultures. It was very clear cut. It was a very clear cut path. You had your interest. This is what I'm interested in. You found your way. There was, even though things were a lot more difficult to come by, there was never any question as to whether or not it was goth. It wasn't something you looked at and said, I don't know, is this goth? Let me ask. It was very definitive. Yes, this thing is goth. No, this thing isn't goth. Because there was no misinformation. There were no roadblocks. There was nothing to stand in your way to show otherwise. Now there are a lot of things that kind of stand in the way. There are a lot of things that kind of block that path and make it a little bit more difficult for people to find the thing that it is that they're looking for because you have that misinformation out there. I mean, there's also the strong likelihood that we can show them the music and they can listen to everything under the umbrella and hate it. But at least they had the opportunity to make that choice for themselves. when in the other instances where they're shown this content where there's a lot of just misinformation, they're never given that opportunity. And that's why I do this, because I want to share with you all the things that I know, all the things that made me happy, all of my life experiences that relate to the subculture, like memories that I will cherish for the rest of my life. And I want you to have the same opportunity. When I see content creators that are spreading misinformation, but in the same breath, they're doing so while feeling the need to openly be malicious toward and insult other content creators that have an opposing view, it makes me wonder if their intentions are sincere and if they're really coming from a place of trying to guide or gain a following. The reason I had so much kind of drama-related content in the past is because there were so many things out there that needed addressing and things that you had to be aggressive about. There was misinformation out there by way of people trying to espouse ideas about goth that were entirely untrue and damaging to the community, and also pushing this consumerist idea that you must look a certain way in order to be goth. So there was a lot of hauls and unboxings that were really confusing people. But now as time has progressed, we have so many other content creators, and the community itself as a whole is more educated and understanding and able to find exactly what they need, and it's easier for them. Because of that, YouTube has gotten so much better by way of being a bit of a more accurate representation of goth. So the genuine community, the authentic content, and really what it's all about is a lot less buried. So I've kind of become a little bit spoiled when it came to that kind of thing, because we've been able to be a little bit more relaxed. I can still express a lot of these issues that are going on, but they're not really going on here. They're out there. These are the kinds of things that will damage goth. These are the people that are telling others that you have to look a certain way to be goth. If you don't look this way, oh, well, you can't sit with us. You can't be one of us. Meanwhile, they're in no way related to the goth community. So there are many reasons I wanted to share this with you here, and one of the reasons is to show you that my content here versus on TikTok is so wildly different. And the reason is necessity versus here, where we can be just much more laid back and where we can have content that has a real focus, real meaning, but we could be a lot more laid back and just have a chat about it, versus there, where it's, you need to be a lot more aggressive about things.
Did we just forget that Gothic rock exists? And that because it's called Gothic rock, it got shortened to goth rock? And then goth rock is called goth? Like,
there are good people out there on TikTok, and they're doing the work. They're explaining the music, they're providing examples.
Here are 5 goth bands that you should listen to.
They're dispelling misconceptions that might make a person feel unworthy or dejected, and they're just trying to provide information and clarity. All kind of doing their bit to provide information, insight, and even a very relatable laugh, using their own personal experiences as a template. Where we might have gotten comfortable here, on TikTok, it's been brewing and getting worse. So it's really to point out also what does exist, what's out there, and how we really do have to be diligent and proactive at kind of maintaining the authenticity of the community and defending others. And it's sad that that kind of thing does exist, but it's here, and the best thing we can do is be proactive about it.
Whether or not somebody's a baby bat has absolutely nothing to do with age. You could have a 19-year-old goth, and then you could have a 35-year-old goth, and technically the 35-year-old could be the baby bat in that situation. The 19-year-old could have discovered goth music when they were like 14 years old and been involved in the subculture since then, whereas the 35-year-old, they could have found it like last Tuesday or even a few months ago. So really it has nothing to do with a person's age, but everything to do with how much time that you've been involved. That being said, you are never too old to get involved in the goth subculture. Music doesn't have an age limit.
When people try to argue being goth but hate the music. There are two arguments I get when this happens, and one of them I'm sure you've heard before is the architecture defense. The architecture defense is when someone argues that 16th century structures supersede Goth music because Gothic cathedrals existed before Bauhaus. Barring that the Gothic period in history and the Goth subculture exist as entirely separate entities. Your entire argument is that you identify as a building? The Gothic period and what came out of it and the Goth subculture are two entirely different things. Anarchy predates punk music by centuries, and punk is a music-based subculture just like goth. Does that mean anyone can be punk, despite not listening to the music? What about metal? Pointing out that a value or concept that influenced a subculture existed before the subculture? It doesn't create a loophole that negates its core and allows people free reign to come in and start rearranging furniture. It's presented in a way that's meant to disprove goth and our entire love for the subculture that we exist in, but it's not only dismissive, but it's also incredibly diminishing to its history and the people therein. It's just freaking mean. Oh, and we have all heard the evolution argument. This is just evolution. Everything evolves. See, the problem is goth has become the catch-all term for anything alternative these days. So people attach themselves to the whole idea when they really don't have any connection to it because it's more palatable to the mainstream because of its association with things that are mystical, enchanting, sexy. Vampires, corsets, Elvira, Morticia, all these things that the mainstream just eat right up. And let's face it, big titty crust punk girlfriend doesn't really have the same ring to it. I mean, can you imagine Kim Kardashian running around with like Liberty spikes or a double hawk? They like the concept, but rather than just adopt the style, which is totally fine, people are free to do it because as goths, we don't hold the patent on dark themes. You like the clothes? Cool, so do we. We understand why. Why the hell wouldn't you? Wear it, go forth, have fun with it. However, it's not just the fashion, because the fashion for them is not enough. So the thing that those outside the subculture do not realize is that goth has evolved. It's evolved very organically, and if you look at it from the beginning until now, you will see those vast differences. However, you can see that it evolved in such an organic way that it maintained that same spirit. Fashionably, musically, culturally, it's still very much the same, but you can see that evolution where it's come from to where it is now. So those who are trying to say, well, goth has evolved to, be anything that they want it to be, their view of evolution is it's just an open door for them to insert anything they want in it. So it's sort of evolved from a music-based subculture to whatever they want to insert in it because they're so married to the label of goth, because they love that concept. The irony and the frustrating part of all of this is the very people that seem to be most interested in this sort of thing is people who made the lives of goths in high school and later on an absolute living hell, making fun of us, tormenting us because we were the freaks. They call themselves goth and claim to be innovators while trying to take the damn thing over. So here they come into the very safe space that we've been occupying all this time, drop their suitcases and say, well, looks like we're roomies. Time to make some changes around here. No, you're not. Are you a baby bat that has ever been told that in order to be a real goth that you must listen to goth music exclusively? This is something that I've heard on my channel from baby bats quite a bit, and they are definitely under the misconception that this is the case and they don't truly feel part of the subculture because they believe they're not, because they like other genres of music. Well, I'm here to tell you that it is categorically false. If you've ever been told that in order to be a real goth you must listen to goth music exclusively, it's a lie. So I don't think I know a single goth purist that listens to goth music exclusively. Everyone I know listens to like a bunch of different genres of music as well as goth. And myself, I listen to I love 80s easy listening like Belinda Carlisle and Steely Dan. I like new wave, which is kind of goth adjacent anyway, but I also love 80s freestyle, 80s and 90s freestyle. Love it. Trip hop, love trip hop. Goth is a music-based subculture. Without the music, there would be no goth. So you can listen to a million genres of music under the sun. So long as one of those genres are goth, you're set. You're golden. No worries. Imagine a punk guy running around saying, hey, I'm a punk, and listening to nothing but Barry Manilow, not ever listening to a single punk song in his life. That would be kind of ridiculous. So the same comes to goth. So long as one of the genres you listen to is goth, it doesn't really matter. So if anybody tells you that you're not a real goth because you listen to any other genre, Pay them no mind.
You posed a very specific question, and I want to make sure that I get it right. What makes a goth? What is goth fashion? And are subtypes important to you? So the beautiful thing about goth music and goth fashion coming together is that our entire aesthetic represents the way that the music makes us feel. If you were to peruse the closet of a goth girl pre-2010, you would see before you pages of an ever-changing story. You would have your romantic Renaissance dress, or 2 or 3. You would also have PVC. You would have latex. You would have corsetry. You would have the stash of DIY, of tattered, ripped, and pinned together things, because it's very much in the vein of goth at its inception as it rose up from the punk subculture. Which, by the way, back in the day, we would refer to that as going old school. It'd be like this: "Hey Vanessa, what are you wearing to the Batcave tonight?" And she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm totally going old school tonight." But the following week at the Batcave, you would see Vanessa wearing a very long and flowy velvet Renaissance gown. Back in the 90s, nobody would bat an eyelid at this kind of thing because that was the norm. Everybody did it. Oh, but you got your group of people nowadays that would passionately disagree with you because they hold this very misguided belief that this list of subtypes is not only a thing, but it marries you to a style that one must select to be their one true identity and uniform from now until the end of time. And should they deviate, they themselves would be untrue. So dear Vanessa, varying up her styles as her mood sees fit, she would, by today's standards, be branded a poser because she stepped outside her subtype. So not only are the concept of subtypes categorically untrue and completely created in satire, they're also divisive, non-inclusive, alienating. They're also very limiting, but they also betray the very core of goth, and that is the music. That list was made so not only could we have a good laugh in general, but we could laugh at ourselves. What we wear doesn't define our place within the subculture. What we wear, how we choose to look, is a representation of how the music makes us feel. When it comes to this issue, you are one of two things: goth or not. All of this other stuff, it's not real.
I picked my battle. Was it a stressful battle? Yeah, it was a stressful one. It was a pain. Because as you can see by the DMs that I received, they're not very nice people. Everybody here, you're all amazing. Do as you have, stay the course, and thank you for sticking with me. And I hope my TikTok content wasn't disturbing, because I promise you I won't do that stuff here. Not anymore. So until next time, everybody. Bye.